like this. Hey, everybody, it's recording. I hit the thing. And look, there's another person here. Richard is back on another episode of OverBOTCH. And as we kick off the off season, it's whatever. It has already been a wild one, but we have Richard here. And so first of all, Plex, you're here as well. But back as well, as always, the resident Cal Ripken of our crew here.
I'd laugh. I don't know who that is.
He's like the what team was he? Was he in New York? Richard
Cal
Ripken. I don't follow baseball. I know he's a baseball player, and he's like he was like one of the longest tenured baseball players.
He's the Iron Man. He broke your record.
Right.
Okay.
Baltimore.
I don't remember what Baltimore.
Okay. Orioles, with their goofy little I joke they're like goofy bird with their fat face. It's the most.
Yes,
it's the most.
The Orioles, baby.
It's the most.
The one sports reference I don't get.
Yeah.
It is okay. So all you have to do is Plex look up the Baltimore Orioles.
Orioles, yeah.
And it is the most unintimidating
logo.
Who
chose this? Who chose this mascot?
You just want to hug him. It's the funniest thing, right? So
I might do that later, but right now we've got a show to do.
Yeah, we do. No, it's good to be back. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it for the past couple days. I mean, a couple shows, but it's not like anything happened around Overwatch League while I was gone.
No, it's been pretty quiet. There's
been some players released, some issues with contracts, nothing major going on.
We were just talking about, and I'm not going to deny our listening audience this though. So give us the elevator pitch version. We were just talking about before we went live, before we brought Richard. So you were in New York last week for the grand finals with the 5DV crew.
Yes.
The NYXL supporter crew, and you had a little bit of an incident.
I did. So first off, want to give massive shout outs to everybody back in New York. I like to think we hosted the single largest and most badass viewing event for the Overwatch League finals that was not covered by the team or the league. This is what happens when you have great locals going. And what's awesome about this clip that you're watching right here is that this is the pop when Dallas wins. Because here's the thing. It's not like New York was anywhere close. Our team was awful. We were awful, right? But it was great because we were unified by one thing, and that thing we were unified was our disdain for San Francisco. This was an anti-San Francisco crowd. All that said, event was awesome. We killed it till about 1 a.m, and then I took a spill. Cracked my head on the sidewalk, got a concussion, and then spent the remainder of my New York trip laid up and trying not to die in order to make it back to Canada to get my brain checked out, while my faculties slowly rewired themselves over the last week. So it was totally worth it.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? We did get to release our official Venom cards, as you can see.
Oh, that's right. The transit cards, an official 5DV transit card, which
the Venom
is so
card,
cool.
They're all, look at this, they're all individually numbered, right? But no, it was actually super awesome.
Did you have the challenge coins there too?
Oh, we did. We had challenge coins. We had everything. Tons of giveaways. Actually, I joked about. Of course, I'm being a little bit facetious. The team Excelsior was incredibly supportive of us. We had a ton of giveaways, huge amounts of signed gear. I think the most sought after stuff was we had actually gear signed by the entire season 1 team.
Oh, that is
Mono, Meko, you had Mono's mouse, Meko's keyboard, limited edition Jonak gear. It was pretty awesome, and we raised
Animo.
We had him on one of those on the undefeated kits. Actually, we had some stuff.
I know he's on season 1 roster.
Yeah, he's on there too.
Main player.
There's some flower stuff. So a little bit of a throwback there for folks. So that was pretty cool.
I hope he's doing well.
Oh, as do I. And no, but it was awesome. We rammed the place, and it was actually wild to see. Some of my colleagues from Atmos came and kicked in, and I'm very happy to say that when they saw that, especially in the context of Overwatch, they're like, this is a cool way to watch gaming, and I'm like, this is Overwatch League culture. When
and on the plus side,
get to the core of it,
And on the plus side, a team in blue won.
Yes, I mean it's
granted it wasn't the New York team in blue, but still.
I mean, it was so funny because they, the folks were asking me the new folks in, they're like, wait, so New York's not in the finals. I'm like, oh no, we're very far away from the finals.
Yeah.
They're like, so who are they cheering for? I said, well, here's the thing. We hate both of these teams.
Yeah.
I hate Dallas.
Sure.
Right. And I don't really like or dislike, but I dislike San Francisco. And what you'll actually find here is that almost everybody feels the same way, but they all can agree that they dislike San Francisco more than Dallas, so they're cheering for Dallas.
Yeah.
That
That's
was kind of the sentiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they couldn't. Because they were amazed. They're like, so they're just so they've basically chosen a team. I'm like, yeah, it's not unlike the Super Bowl. You kind of have to declare a team that you're going to support.
Even if yours isn't in there, right? Yeah.
Which is most likely what is happening,
I feel that.
right? So yeah, that was the case. So it was fascinating to see this enormous pop. So everyone always jokes, it's like, well, it's season 1 and you had like this unstoppable team. Of course you're gonna pop. I'm like, that group of folks popped harder for Dallas winning than some crowds pop for like events. People like pop for their own teams.
Oh yeah.
We probably had more folks out than the supporter groups for the actual teams.
There's a good shot. There's a good shot
in their own cities. So
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why I always tell folks it's not about who's better or worse, because obviously we know 5DV is superior. But jokes aside,
#ad.
It shows. It actually shows what a more balanced and a balanced and sustainable approach. What that actually looks like. This was not We're not at a major chain restaurant. We're not in a theater. We actually went back for the first time. Mr. Wu's Basement had just opened up. We were there. So that was our old place for bigger events. And they have not been open since COVID hit. Their first event on opening, and this is like an underground bar. A lot of the hip hop scene goes, their old school stuff. The first event coming back was hosting the Overwatch League Grand Finals watch party. Right?
But you gotta admit, real quick on the finals, the Fearless storyline was a lot more investable than in the San Francisco Shock winning their 3rd title.
100%. The amount of love and like that energy that was going to support Fearless throughout that entire game, that whole night. Again, we've talked about this before. It's not unlike when you see a great run, right? A great push that becomes a beautiful story in wrestling.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're a fan or not. You're there because it's
Kofi Mania as an example.
So that's a great example. It pulls you into that moment, and it holds and it grows, and it was amazing. And all along the way, it's again like massive thank you to the team at Excelsior. That entire all the giveaways were built off of a raffle for charity, and we raised another crap ton of money for University Settlement locally, right? That is the local city-based charity partner we have. We don't make huge posts about it, but that's not the point. Our point is to get things over there because they're still on that same mission that they've always been on for over 100 years. Every bit counts. So it was a really nice way to cap off the season, to show what everyone says, do it for the culture, but I said, but what does the culture actually mean? Where does it actually go? And right there on that night, you see all of the awesomeness that's created, minus me bonking my head on the sidewalk. But not so much
different kind of awesomeness. Yeah, different kind of culture.
Yeah. At least you came back with a story. That's the important
thing. Exactly. And I did get my obligatory slice of superior pizza. It was good.
Easy now.
I'm not getting this debate. You two were.
It better been from some little stand off the street.
It was literally a place.
That's right.
The missus went and got something. She goes, "You wouldn't believe what I found," because she always jokes about this. I was like, "I actually found a place called Pizza Town, and it's actually amazing."
Yeah.
And it was truly good. But
what
overall,
toppings? I have to ask, what toppings?
It's a New York slice. So the most you'd ever put on it is pepperoni. That's really the most. Normally, I just get a cheese slice, like a margarita. So it's just cheese, basil, and tomato. But in this case, she got a pepperoni because it's a stand, so they have to put a topping on it. Yeah, but no mushrooms or anything else though, Plex.
But
just the pepperoni.
Places like those are the best. It's like, I'm not sure if they're in New York, they're in Chicago for sure. But like, you know how you find good Mexican food? The restaurant has a random number next to it, like Taco Express number 3.
Or
like, Taco
absolutely.
Burrito King number 3 or number 5 or number 7.
We have that. Yeah. We have that. We had those in New York too. I was joking. It's like something like Grand Pizza 2, and it's Roman numerals.
Yeah,
right? Like
right? Where's
Yeah.
1? I don't care. This is really good.
Trying to find the original, right? I know. I totally get that, man.
Yes.
But speaking of Overwatch League, this has been a very interesting time. It's a very interesting time for rosters, eh? It's weird.
No
Just a little
kidding.
bit.
So we've come off. So you know what I should have pulled up, and maybe I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up out of our chat here. They did, before we get into exactly all the little moves, they made some changes to rosters. Well, it's not a huge overhaul. It's not a gigantic overhaul, but some interesting changes of note. The 2023 roster construction rules. Some of the key dates we know, 4th and 5th have already happened. Any team options had to be exercised by last week or earlier this week on the 11th. Not tomorrow, but Friday, if you're listening to this right here on Wednesday, Friday, November 18th, that's when if no options have been picked up, everybody becomes a free agent. And then as of this Saturday, November 19th, you can technically begin signing free agents for the upcoming season, with a January 16th deadline to have a minimum of 5, and then a March 1st, which is telling about maybe when we'll be having a season start. March 1st, 2023 is the deadline for the league minimum of 6 players for season-long contracts for the upcoming season. Yeah. Other things of note, 2 major things of note, they did increase the minimum salary from $50K to $54,249, so about a $5,000 increase for cost of living. And then they have eliminated the rolling, not 30-day contracts, but rolling. So when you sign something, hey, we're going to pick you up for a 30-day, and then if we want, we can keep that going. Now it's you either at 30 days and they're a free agent again, or you have to sign into a full for the remainder of the season. There's no just keep rolling over either 30 days or add it on to another 2 months or whatever.
That's a nice change.
It is overall a nice change. So yeah, first off, initial reactions here.
Richard?
March. Wow, season's coming back already in March.
Well, let's assume an April start time.
I'm going to assume, either early April or maybe even late March, if that's the deadline. Yeah, that's my guess.
So I mean, look, the COLA increase, if it goes to 54.29 and the baseline was, you said it was 50 before?
I believe, yes.
Okay, so you're talking about like just under 10%, which is technically not matching inflation.
I was going to say, I'm like, it's a good move, but it feels maybe a little bit below what it should have been for inflation.
Well, here's why. You're talking an annual and it's the minimum. Yeah. Just make it 60.
That's exactly where my head was at.
Come on.
Like, here's the thing, guys. Why would you make it 249? Like, just say 250.
We're not selling candy at the grocery store here. It's $1.99, right? It's less than $2.
So there's that. No, but all said, I love the removal of the rolling, because do you remember when we were talking about rosters at the beginning of the season?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Matt, you and I have talked about this for a long time. I've hated since the beginning this whole day of the concept of the 30-day contract, because it is predatory. It is predatory, and it actually puts anybody who is a player in a very, very weak position, because it's taking advantage of the fact that they will do whatever it takes to try to make it. And when there is that kind of power dynamic, it's something that should not be supported. Not by an organization that's fundamentally tapping into people who are not underage, right? Through the development scene. So it sets a very, very bad precedent. So I really do like that, though, that they set that. I am curious, though, and this is the reality. I like that it puts a little bit of pressure on determining stability. It makes you have to think through your roster, because as we saw over the last season, there was it was like an automotive technician. Does this work? Nope, throw it out. Does this work? Nope, throw it out.
Exactly.
Does this work? Nope, throw it out. And I was like, guys, if you're really that good at what you do, you wouldn't be like flailing around, throwing away people's livelihoods like this.
I mean, kind of devil's advocate here, I can appreciate, because obviously Overwatch 2 was so new, everyone was assuming double flex support at the beginning, and obviously we got Arno Lucio to begin with. So teams that had 2 flex supports was pretty much stuffed.
Yeah, no,
Apart from the San
absolutely.
Francisco Shock.
Yep.
So I can understand why they did it last year, because obviously you don't know with Overwatch 2. Now I think this season coming up, everyone's had their hands on Overwatch 2, and everyone's played a season in Overwatch 2.
Sure.
Now they can make a better idea.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the
No,
bigger
absolutely.
issue, though, is to Richard's point, though, is the idea that, like, that's very true. Like, there was going to be a lot of X factors coming into this season regardless. So, like, but I think this helps with a little bit of player protection as opposed to org protection.
Hands down.
You know what I mean? Who can just willy-nilly, like we said, throw people around because a meta changes when it's like, yeah, but these are still human beings. Like, you got it, you got the meta wrong. You predicted wrong who would be needed. That's on you. That shouldn't be on these poor kids who are flying across the world.
And you ended up with
to try
Gunnar on Lucio.
Sure. So
Which,
I get
not his
that.
hero.
So I have to ask this. I kind of joked about it in our Discord, but with it being now, again, with 30 days being more of a hard line option for a contract, again, it's literally just like hey, this person, it's 30 days, they're back to free agency, they can negotiate with any team they want, as opposed to this kind of rolling thing. I don't know, but I wanted to ask you guys, are we about to maybe see like the season of the Hitman, as I say, where it's like, there's some free agents out there, especially, you know, as we'll get into who's been left into free agency and who's not and everything like that. But where now you hard hire someone for a month to cover a meta, and then they thanks for your time, like a true independent contractor, like, hey, we're hiring you for a job, we need you to play Widow for a month, and then bye.
I mean, it feels to me like it's going to promote almost like a mercenary style mentality.
That's exactly what mercenary hitman. That's exactly what I'm.
Okay, so if we hire you for this meta, and then you're gone. We'll give you the pay, like, here you go.
You sign like a generally well-rounded roster to kind of cover your bases, but then if a crazy Genji meta comes up and you don't have a great, are you going to have like these hitmen, these mercenaries who come in for a month? Thanks for your service. See ya.
I mean, yeah. I think we will. I think that's the reason for it, because I think the reality too that we're going to face in the game is that, I mean, we've already seen this just on the platform itself. The updates and the fixes generally come in a little bit faster. The shifts happen a bit more. 30 days, I can see it happening if you are absolutely shorthanded. But I think the reality is that it forces you to decide, because if you pull it, you only get to use that person once. It's not unlike a game in and of itself, right? You get to utilize the resource once. So I think it's actually, again, I think we will see that. I think we'll see a few mercs. But the thing is, if you can only get signed to one team for one moment, what's really kind of crappy is that you're brought on as like a temp. Do you know what I mean? You're never making
Christmas
it on
temps,
that team. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's seasonal service. I think it's interesting. Again, it's one of those cases where, as we know, one of the big reasons this is always an issue is that all of these issues download all the pressures for development to underfunded and undersupported tier 2 and tier 3 orgs, which again, I'm always kind of curious to see how this rattles out in terms of how people conduct themselves, because the last round of contracts was a disaster for the tier 2 scene, because it turned everything into like a free-for-all. So it actually obliterated sustainability and stability at the baseline. But again, we have to see. I think the reality too we have to see is, I think the main reason we're going to see this is that teams are going to go for what's the best of the middle ground, because that cost of those players and what they can get, because they're not going to get that much. It says what the minimum is on the annual.
Yeah.
Doesn't say what the minimum on the 30-day is.
True. Very true.
Right?
Conspicuous by its absence.
But the roster cap is still going to be 12, if I remember correctly. So you only have a maximum of 12 players at any given time.
Oh, I don't think anyone's getting anywhere near 12.
No, so that's what I'm saying.
Unless you're Joe Spark, but that's a different story.
Exactly. And this is why, like, because everyone was flailing around, so they overspent. And remember, don't forget, all of this is happening in context of that note that we know and that meeting that happened with the board, which is that they're entering belt tightening season.
Yes.
You know, that horrible sort of euphemism for there is no money. Because what we have to also understand is that all these contracts in this league, they're getting ready to build a system, right? Prepare their financial forecasting around a league where we know the events do not draw enough revenue to make a substantive impact on the operation of the team, because none of these organizations are run by teams that only have an Overwatch League team. So whatever
Right.
revenue that you get diffuses across the relative cost of the entire organization, right? This is my little business sport economics lesson of the day. So let's just say like you're Toronto Defiant. Even if you sold out every day and it was amazing, it's not like that's just like Defiant revenue, right? Because that assumes that you have fundamental isolation across all business units for a holding company, which we know doesn't happen in esports.
Right.
You can't do it that way. So here's the thing. What are the sources of revenue? And do you remember at the very beginning of the season, all those financials came out and we started to go through things, and I took you guys through the concept of goodwill and how there's like weird things that show up. So what's the revenue line? And in sport, as we know, the revenue lines are season ticket holders, ticket revenue, basic ticket revenues, like repeat, right? Ticket revenues, corporate sponsorships, corporate seats, ticket packs, and then everything else comes down the line. So when you think about it, they've got to sort of think about the prize pool doesn't warrant, like, that is the only sort of set potential maximum. But then what are the revenue set? They can't have enough events to make tickets worth anything. And
100%.
no team actually has an arena for a stadium. And if you don't own the stadium, then you've got to pay for the lease. So you're already burning up dollars. So this is where it gets really interesting. I think what we're actually going to see is teams of like 7 most, right? Because people need breaks. But 7. And then we'll get occasional backfills if there's an absolute miss for the team.
Yeah.
Because they will not sign someone for the whole team, for the whole the entire season. Now, one thing I wanted to get, I was unsure about is what is the minimum duration for a team? So like you have to sign 6 people to a season-long contract, correct? Right?
Yes.
30 days are the minimum. Okay, what's in between? Is that in here? Because I'm just like looking through this now.
I don't. It only refers to the 30-day contracts and no more rolling, and then and just the season-long contracts. All teams are required to have 6 players for season-long contracts at all times over the course of the season.
Okay, but what about the 7th person? Can he sign for 2 months?
I mean, based off any other sport and other business, you would think that for that in between, anything is technically negotiable. Like if person. Although, well, how many of these kids actually have "quote unquote" agents or anything like that, right? And how?
Well,
and
they have pretend agents.
I was gonna say, or if they do, how many actually act in good faith, right?
Oh, that's a very different question. We'll talk about that another time. No,
100%.
so what I think is we'll probably get like a 2-month. If they've totally botched it, you'll get something that covers you for 2 months.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: it says you can't extend a 30-day. Okay, then just sign someone for 60.
Right, out of the gate, a 60-day contract. Yeah, I would assume that's not off the table if it's not explicitly.
That's my point. There's always something else that you have to sort of look at. But all of this is about cost control and management, right? It's how do you maximize performance, put on a good show, and not blow your dollars needlessly.
Yeah, it's finding that middle ground overall. I mean, if it was me and I was building a roster for the league, I'd build the 6 seasonal roster and have it so that team can cover as many things as possible. But then, this is just me, he's spousing a little bit. If it were me, I'd use the 30-day contracts. Let's say a player gets injured, for example. You could then go, okay, who's available at the minute? 30-day contract until they're covered. I mean, imagine if Fusion had that with Zest last year. But like he can play, so they slotted in Carpe. I mean, to be fair, Carpe's no slouch. No, he's actually still able to perform to a high level. It's a case of you would have preferred Zest in that slot or someone like him because it kind of restricted what Fusion could play. So in injury situations, that's when I would use it. But obviously, I'm not a team owner or anything like that, and they may go, "Oh no, we haven't got a player who can play Moira. Let's bring in this player who's a Moira specialist."
Right. So I'm reading it, and maybe I'm reading into this too much, Richard, and stuff too. As this is just a press release, right? This isn't really an official like lockdown of every single bit and piece of the contracts, but it seems pretty cut and dry about like season-long contracts carry minimum initial term 1 season and may include the unilateral extension option for 1 additional season, all that stuff. If a team has at least 6 players signed to season-long contracts, as is required, they may sign additional players to 30-day contracts. So the way it's worded as it is sounds like you either sign them for a season long, or if you already have that met, the only other option is a 30-day. Again, this is just a press release, but it's the way it's worded feels like it's either season long or 30-day. There's not a 2 or 3 month but in theory, you might be able to negotiate it, but it seems like those may be the only two options. But we shall see if anybody tries to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to see. It's one of those cases, right? Because I think and I guess this kind of goes into, I figure what we're going to go into next, which is that all the massive shifts and releases and non-signings are just, it's about financial reconciliations, right? Like you've got to get this stuff organized, right? There's no more New York Excelsior, right? There's no more lots of teams. Yeah. Technically speaking, when they put out those notes, they're just waiting for everything to clear, because actually what they're going to do is start from scratch. And here's why. My prediction, and if I'm wrong, I will buy you all a root beer. Everybody's resetting because those salaries are all going down. Everybody's are going down.
Yep, I can see that.
And I think, just between us girls, there's going to be quiet collusion for everybody to not allow any team to bid more, because that's how they control the market. That's how anybody would control a fixed market. I'd quietly call you and Plex and be like, guys,
like, hey, we're not going to be offering anyone more than X amount.
We're going to be
nobody. Yeah,
cool.
like,
are we all good with this? We're
all the back offices.
Our capital expenditures.
Kind of thing, yeah.
Our gentleman's agreement or gentleperson's agreement will be that our max.
They're GAing the salaries. They're literally, they might GA the salaries. That's funny.
No, but I actually think that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's like deep, and I don't think it's malicious or anything.
No.
About, honestly, I think it is, quite frankly, the first time they're really, I hope this is true. So this is like not me kind of poo-pooing on them. I really do hope that this is a way to start to understand financial feasibility, sustainability, and responsibility.
Yeah.
Because if they don't get this right for next season, I don't think there's very many seasons or any seasons left, quite frankly, because you've got new ownership. They're going through the merger, right? Quite frankly, I think the coolest thing that's been happening is all the stuff outside of the league. Right, the calling all heroes stuff.
Sure, we're going to talk about it a lot in the coming up episodes.
Yeah, but I think that's one of those. You see what I mean? Like, it's about how you hedge your investments. Don't leave everything in one exchange. Don't put your money into the FTX of the world.
Sure.
Oh god.
So, and this is something too that I'm like, it makes me sick, because obviously I don't want players. We have most of our emotional connection and everything to the players, the people we see, the people we put our kind of our hopes and our dreams and our excitement on, right? And I don't want to see them get paid any less. I think they're all awesome, of course, right? But at the same time, it's like there definitely does need to be a reset in financial responsibility. And so I wonder, I have to imagine the answer is unlikely, but maybe as a kind of like compromise.
Yeah.
Will get paid less. There'll be less people above the minimum probably in this upcoming season, if at all. But then maybe loosen rules on individual sponsorships. Maybe these players, I don't see that happening, but I think that could be a good compromise.
Oh,
like, hey,
you're getting into the NCAA discourse, which is at the core of so much sport and culture in America.
Yeah.
So I love that you mentioned that, because you've heard me talk about the reality of why sponsorships are so why there's so many problems around it, right? In that we weren't even allowed to basically have proper sponsors in the tier 2 scene. I mean, bless Advanced and Vitamin, right? And Game Advantage and everyone else who helped us along the way at Revival. You need that to survive. Now, this is also one of the challenges, right? A sponsor's dollars are relative to the amount of people watching. And then that is only the very first piece of the calculation. After that, you've got to see how much do you actually generate from things. But I can tell you, again, I've had contact with some of these larger brands that do these sponsorships, and I can tell you they don't give money. Some of their global budgets for sponsoring esports are smaller than regional ad buys in America.
Sure.
So what they're doing is they're giving equipment. So why nobody talks about the value of the sponsorships, right? And yes, a team can get it, but that again, they need to cover the salaries of the players and the entire organization and all of the
Yeah,
merchandise
everything that
produced
goes into it.
and
Yep.
the phone bill and the food. See, so this is the whole issue, right? Because eventually they need to find a way to actually be able to create the same effect for less. That's the purpose of any cultural momentum, right? In sport, the same level of effort will actually either garner you more or less investment can get you the same thing, right? And here's the reality, right? You think about what it takes to get a watch party out, just a watch party, something to build generalized culture. And the calculus that you have to deal with is that you can get 3 folks to like get it, put their heads together and throw the single largest watch party outside of anything that the league is running or teams
Sure.
are running.
Mm.
And that was like just 3 people. If we can do that and teams have to spend $15,000-$20,000 in a venue and to do the same thing, the investment's wrong. But
Yeah.
then the question is, how do you work? How do you see? But then the question is, well, then why? And then it gets back to the basics of audience development. And that's the challenge that they're going to face. So with individuals getting sponsorships, I think it can work. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that I've had direct contact with folks who were looking at the contracts and dealing with the agents of their kids. And the funniest that we ever got was, hey, if you hear about any good sponsorship angles, send them our way. And I'm like, that's literally your job.
Your job. Yeah, we were
You're the
talking about that.
agent. These
Oh,
folks are
God.
checking they're like contract lawyers, which isn't a bad thing. But your job is not negotiating broader deals. And now also having worked with I've worked with plenty of folks within the quote unquote influencer space. And if you look at the pitch decks that come from people, they're like ludicrous. The numbers they want don't even make sense. I once said to someone, I'm like, okay, I get where you're going. I really like this person, but this cost, right? This cost is 5 times what I could buy, I would spend if I literally bought a TV ad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reach 100 times more people. So even on the rattle down, we're going to get more.
Yeah.
That's why. So again, I think it can work, but again, it needs some education, as we get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. No, absolutely.
As it boils down to with everything, education.
Very, very much so. But as we look at what the teams might look like, let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty, because there's a lot that has happened in the last week.
Yeah, everything just exploded last week.
Yeah, and a lot of people lost their minds, and I even put out a tweet to be like, look, here's the thing, this was kind of expected. It kind of happens every year. This year was just a little bit more so, it feels like. Because again, these guys aren't on 3-5-year contracts or whatever. 90% of these kids are on 1-year contracts.
Exactly.
So they're all going to be pretty much left into free agency unless they had a 1+1 or something like that and got picked up by the team. And we're coming off of a game where people were literally just feeling out the brand new play style and everything that goes into the league. So just a quick kind of rundown. Plex, thank you very much for sharing this article. And there's even more has happened since this has happened. This covered from the 7th to the 14th over the course of a week. But even more than this has already happened. We've seen everybody from the Titan coaching moves. DPay left the Titans. Pre has been announced as the GM of Boston. Outlaws did releases. Shock did releases. Atlanta did releases. Bird Ring says he wants to come back. What the hell? Carpe's leaving. Bird Ring's coming back.
I know. Everybody's going everywhere.
Yeah, there's so
more.
many people. Yeah, so Fuel let all their players go. Boston let pretty much everybody go. All this stuff. So when I saw everybody be like, hey, these people weren't being picked up again. These people are getting contract expire. I actually made a little, not a spreadsheet, but a little sheet that says who's left. Instead of who all got released or not, but who's actually left on their team.
Who is left? Yeah, who is left?
So, so I have all these teams. These are the people who remained under contract or got picked up with their team option or are still under a contract. And then the teams that say all next to them, if this is big enough for you guys, I can make it bigger.
Yep, no, we can see it. Yep.
If it says all, that means I can make it a little bit bigger. that means that all the players were released.
No, for some
and
reason
Okay.
on my screen, I've only got that article again.
that don't here. I will try. I will pull it away and make it a little bit. I will try it again. Let me unshare my screen, and then I
Yeah.
will share it again.
Difficulties, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But just while Matt's figuring that out, so Albert on the Mayhem side of things actually provided a bit of context for why certain players or rest of it left and such. So I'm going to read you the quote from Albert on Twitter. Some context on the player contracts. We exercise our team options on someone, Checkmate, and Rupal. The team options on Animo and Majed were declined. Hydron and Exy were on 1-year contracts that expired at the end of the season. So in theory, they could re-sign Hydron and Exy.
Well, that's what I was good. That's the case for everybody. You know what I mean? That we're going to be
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right?
Albert's been great with context and clarification tweets this season. So
I will say
just
a
wanted
lot.
to bring that up.
Yeah, no, a lot. And to be fair, shout out to I believe it was the Dragons who first put out the all-in-one. Hey, here's the contract status of our players,
And everyone's
which
like,
is
"Oh, we'll do that." That's a
way
great
better
idea.
than 16 goodbye posts, welcome back posts, blah blah blah. That was a great thing. I'm actually gonna add that to Floor. Can you see now, Plex? Do you see my list here?
Loud and clear.
Okay, RuPaul. So yeah. The players that we have remaining in the league, and some of them we don't know. There's some of the Asian teams who have been eerily silent, not only in general, but like for like the last like month and a half. Like Chengdu and like Charge have not like tweeted since like September. It's wild. So I'm gonna do a really quick rundown. Atlanta Reign released everybody, all their young stars. They kept Kai and Hawk. They even let go of Gator. But they let go of their American Tornado
I want
folks.
to say they retained Vigilante as well. I think they retained Vigilante.
Did they? Let me check really quick because I thought he was in that big goodbye post. You might be right though. They had way more people under contract than I thought. Oh, Vigilante's not in there. You're right. So so Vigilante.
Yeah,
I will add
which I think is a
that.
good thing
Okay.
because he didn't really get a fair chance on Justice because they went
Yeah,
and
that's
nuked
fair.
their roster. So I'm actually happy they retained Vigilante.
Yeah.
I want to see what he could really do.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, Plex. That's actually something I'm really curious about, right? Because we've seen this in the game, especially with these meta shifts. Like I still think, the introduction of Sojourn and sort of seeing how Spire, right, really, and that particular meta with Junker Queen and everything, it was awesome, right? It was super cool to see. I'm certain we're going to see more of that. But I'm really curious how many of those sort of assets are already hiding on those rosters. Because what would we know? What would we ultimately know?
Absolutely
nothing.
Yeah, no, true. So yeah, I think they obviously Kai has proven obviously he's always a great hit scan and everything like that. I'm kind of shocked that they let the backline go. That was that American Tornado backline of
OG,
Ultraviolet and OG. And I know Atlanta didn't do as well as they were hoping, and Speedily, which I know didn't really like pop off the way again that everyone kind of I think put too much pressure on. But I thought had a ton of potential.
Yeah,
but
I mean the player for me on Atlanta that I'm kind of sad for is Nero, because you always knew Nero was the placeholder for Speedily. When Speedy came in, Nero was basically going to be permabench.
Yeah,
it's a shame because Nero is a good player. Because he was basically one of the scapegoats for Shock's poor season in 2021. Him and Glister.
Sure.
So I was actually sad for Nero because I want to see him regain that confidence and get back to that level of performance he had on Guangzhou Charge.
Well, free agency might be good for him. Maybe he gets picked up and put into a place where he can make a difference. And it's cool to see Hawk stay too, because I think he really did step up this
Hawk
year.
Is such an he's such a badass.
Yeah,
I know. Oh man. Oh wait, hold on. How many heroes do we get by the start of next season?
We've got Ramattra coming out, and I think
one more. Yeah, another support hero should come out in March or April. Yeah,
2 more.
Yep.
Oh, so it's
a tank
and
a support, a tank and then a support.
Oh man, that makes it so much cooler.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I mean, new tank heroes are awesome, but another support, again, very interesting, right? Because you think about it, obviously, like that, it's the math thing, right? 2 supports on the team, you've got to have a backup, different styles of play.
Mhm.
You add a third support. I'm just curious what the kit might be like, because Kiriko really changed the game, right? In terms of what you can heal. Like, I have so much fun playing as her because it's just like I have unlimited heals. I'm gonna hit you with my flower paper. It's wonderful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But there are funny things like that bailout mode with her little like flash is super awesome.
Yep.
But I'm curious because if you get a damage dealing support, like you remember like when Zen was on, like when he's really on, it's just like getting hit in the face by a howitzer. Like it's the craziest thing, right? But it changes the way you get to it. It again,
The
I think
Jonak style.
exactly. So that's why I was curious. Like I wish I could associate players with positions a little bit better, but I was curious: is there any hedging on the roles that are being retained like across the teams? Just
Oh
looking
well,
at the
hey,
lists.
well again. So let's look at this more of an overall thing because everybody's breaking down individual, and I don't know if we have time to go through every individual team.
No, of course.
So the teams that got rid of everybody were Boston, Dallas, technically.
Did Boston
New-
get rid of their entire roster?
Yes,
I can't
nobody got picked up.
Dang.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Let me see
I
if I
didn't
can
see that.
I have Pre's thing here. But they're yep, if you look here, Punk's contract expired, Valentine's expired, Mags was declined, everybody else was
Dang.
declined. Yep.
Wow.
Fingers crossed Punk gets on a good team.
Yeah, no kidding. Although so when you see that though, by the way, expired. Declined means they could have picked them up, they chose not to. So those are like you're as close to your released players as you can get. With Punk and Valentine, they may want them back, and they might be. That's the case where it's like they might be in negotiations to come back. We'll wait till the signing date and everything like that. So,
carry on.
Yeah. So Boston, Dallas have announced that everybody's free. Similar case over there. A lot of expired contracts. Most of them, if not all, are probably in negotiations to come back. I would imagine.
I have just re-signed with Rush. That much I do know.
New York.
So, just real quick, Rush was the reason Sparkle moved to Paris Eternal in the first place. So my guess is you get Rush, you might get Sparkle back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and they've the last 2 years they've built something pretty significant there too, with all of those players really. So New York got released all their players, and then they didn't do an official thing, but kind of looking at all like the LFTs that I've seen, I believe all of Justice is also contracts expired. There may be one of them who technically is still on the team, but I've seen LFTs from pretty much, and remember, they only have the 5-man roster with Joey from accounting filling in for the 6th one. So I believe I've seen LFTs from all, if not most of them. So yeah, but the those that retained, we talked about were, so Atlanta picked up Hawk, Vigilante, and Kai, so DPS tank. Florida had someone checkmate RuPaul, so one of each. Houston retained Dante, Pelican, and Merritt, so tank and DPS. London retained their core, it seems like Hottie, Backbone, Admiral, and Landon, so a little bit of each. But mainly their support. And a little bit of everything. Gladiators, interestingly enough, the only options they exercised, Kevster and Funny Astro. So their flex DPS and their support there. That's no Happy, no Reiner, no Space, as far as I know.
LA Gladiators are still unable to retain a main tank. They've had a different main tank player every season.
Yeah.
The streak continues, unfortunately.
And really quick, just Eternal kept Mathel, Dove, Lucamino, and Rack Attack. So they're Western 4 there. Fusion have retained Zest and MN3. No surprise there. They're rookie standouts. Shock have retained Proper, Finn, Kilo, and Violet, getting rid of most of their Western players. O2 Blast incoming. And the Dragons have retained Lip, Li Gong, and Izayaki.
Which is awesome.
Yep. Which a lot of people, I think
Li Gong Tower, anyone?
Yeah. I think people thought Shanghai was going to see a lot more retirements and people leaving than that. And then the Toronto Defiant released everybody except Hotba.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, as
So
far as I
far,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
could get something later today for all we know.
But
yeah,
also,
yeah,
it's-
exactly. I mean, remember, some orgs are pacing things. It does happen. Although I do have a hunch, this is just my hope, that Hoppa is also the kind of tank you can build around. Very flexible.
Sure.
Has shown that he can manage, right? Like a lot of different. He's been consistent through the shifts.
Sure. Yeah, yes. Very, very true. So,
Yeah.
again, like I said, we don't have time to break maybe every single individual team, but what are the standouts here from like the players that have stayed, the players that are going, or anything like that?
the one that stands out to me is the Hotbar one, because there's something that Rich didn't quite pick up on, is the fact they've signed a new coach who is a Western coach.
That's
and
right.
Hotbar is bilingual. He can speak Korean and English. So I've got the feeling they're going to go for a mixed roster next year.
That's right. So,
And
for those who don't know,
Hotbar
yeah,
is a good move.
I never know how to pronounce. Is it Kazores or Kazores?
Richard, over to you on this one.
I know he was in Shock, right? Assistant
Yeah.
coach.
Yep.
Coming out of the Dutch scene. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Like Netherlands, is that where he was?
On the
World
again,
Cup?
I don't know his
'Cause
background.
I swear to gosh, he was on the World Cup squad. Super jacked. Like, dude, did you see his, his biceps?
Yeah.
Matt, you're dead. I don't know, man. I feel like he's gonna outcurl you.
You guys can't see it, but I'm flexing and I'm winning, so it doesn't matter. Bring it on, Kazores.
No, honestly, I'm just really curious. It's always interesting
Yeah.
to get somebody from the Shock organization. Like, I mean, I know I was teasing them earlier. Good squad, good program, sustainable crew.
Yep.
I'm curious, right? Because again, there are these great sort of assets that it's not even that they're like underappreciated. Nothing negative like that. It's more that, you know what, they're looking for that opportunity to give it a go. How many, they were given that shot. So I'm really curious to see how that looks, in terms of setup. It's one of those cases with Toronto's organization, they've, kudos to them. They've always held quite well in terms of like keeping organization together. You kind of like put that time into either the management, the team, the players. Like we've historically not had a lot of quick swaps, right? And I've always thought that's really, really awesome, right? In terms of setup. So with Toronto, I'm just super curious what this nets out as, because I wish I don't have any inside baseball on this, but I'm really curious what Kazores' approach will be like. Approach is game style wise. I probably have to hit the streams a little bit over the next little while to learn, but in the end, really early, right, to announce that, like, because we cleared the roster.
Yeah.
Already that piece is in, and what that means is scouting, planning, discussion, and strategization, and that's a good thing. Like, I want to see that from more teams and organizations. It's just a good thing in general. I'm really positive and happy about like the way the league's going right now.
If you think about it, that's kind of what Mayhem did last year. The second they announced the trials, they said must be able to speak English. That was a dead giveaway. They were going for the mixed roster, and obviously the first signing out the gates was Sir Majed, who was from Saudi Arabia. So they went from a full Korean roster to a mixed roster, and of course over time we got Gunbar as head coach. We got obviously we got Checkmate coming back, and so all the pieces came together. So I get the feeling that Toronto are going to be in a similar boat here, where this new coaching signing has announced their intentions for next season, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the rumors going around too, and like I'm having trouble. Again, we're still very, very early days. One of the rumors going around is that a lot of the NA teams, the Western teams, are going to try to stick to more Western and or mixed rosters, less full Korean rosters. Dealing with visa issues, things like that is something they want to try to up. That again, that is something floating around in the internet ether. But we've already seen that a little bit, with like the Vegas Eternal and and stuff like that, and even Florida with these mixed rosters and stuff like that, and Atlanta Reign sticking mostly Western for the. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you look at London Spitfire; they've proven that a Western roster can work. I mean, it took some time. Don't get me wrong, but they proved that the European scene is actually pulling their weight in terms of developing talent.
Well, I was more than just Western roster. Like, I mean, there's obviously a big American scene, but just proving the it's seemingly dying European Overwatch scene, that there's still talent out there
There's
Yeah.
This is kind of-
there's so much talent out there.
Oh yeah,
So
Yeah.
much.
ridiculous.
you don't want to lock yourself to one region
Yeah,
sometimes. I mean,
or to
with-
two in our case. It does feel like a shame sometimes that it's like it's America and then like China, Korea, and it's like, dude, there's a whole planet
I
of
mean,
players in between
think about
there.
it this way, the only two teams I can see going for like one nationality are Chengdu Hunters and Seoul Dynasty. That's what they base their brand on. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, the APAC teams outside of them will probably go for a hybrid of Korean Chinese. But a lot of the NA teams, I can see them move towards these hybrid rosters.
Yeah,
What we saw, at least what I saw last year, was that the non-Korean talent, they are stepping up big time. It's like,
yeah,
saw how, like I said, London Spitfire were able to carry their way forward. We saw Florida Mayhem do well, Houston Outlaws do well, and a lot of these, and obviously San Francisco Shock with mixed rosters. So it could be that next year, hybrid rosters like that could be the quote unquote meta for a lot of teams. But we'll have to wait and see.
yeah. It could be.
Mhm.
It's like, but like, it's interesting because I feel like that big rush for like there were several like American Tornado players that were signed to NA teams last year. Then I feel like I don't want to say came up short because I don't think that's fair, but I think like didn't pop off the way maybe. I mean, you had people like that was Reiner was
Yeah,
one
it's
of
a burden by
those.
reputation.
OG and Ultraviolet were one of those.
Kaluge was one.
Kaluge
Hydron.
one. Sam, I believe, at some point was too, right?
Yeah, Kaluge was on there. Hydron, I believe.
Hydron,
was
yeah,
there
yeah.
for tournament.
And again, all these players like did well, but like I don't think there was like this like yeah. Some of the you're right. Some of the Eternal was on there too. Like I just didn't take over, and I think in the way that a lot of people I think maybe thought they would. So yeah, I'm really curious to see. I don't buy the idea that NA teams are gonna go like everyone's gonna go all Western. Number one, there's too many teams. There's 12 teams. Like you're not gonna have 12 fully Western like all American player teams. It ain't happening. And you can already see Shock is seemingly going back to like a full Korean, especially with the relationship with O2 Blast. That seems to be the way that they just happen to be going. So I don't buy. And Outlaws, I
Yeah.
think are gonna. I think will retain. We could see changes, of course, still in the coming weeks, but I think will retain the mix of Dante, Pelican, Merritt, and then probably bring in some possibly Korean players and stuff for the support roles. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
think we're gonna, but I do think mixed rosters might be more common than
Well,
in years
if you think
past.
about it, the coaching stuff's going to be the fact. So, like for example, with Rush on Dallas Fuel, he's obviously from Korea, so he might lean towards a majority Korean roster,
Sure.
and obviously Krusty being Korean as well. Then you had Gunbar, for example, at Florida Mayhem, and he also Jake and is it Young Buck at Houston
Junk
Outlaws?
Buck.
Thank you. Couldn't remember how to pronounce it. So they went for mixed. So I think realistically, the coaching staff we see signed could
Right.
give us a clue.
You also
as
have to
where
like we have
roster
to
going.
get to know these coaches. I mean, the thing is, just because a coach is from Korea doesn't mean they can't work with English speaking
Yeah, of
players.
course.
They might be bilingual themselves. I think I would imagine actually a lot more of staff as opposed to players would be bilingual, just because that's
Yeah, I
more
mean,
of the
Krusty's fluent in
business side of
English.
things. Yeah, you pretty much you have to deal with the business side of things as too. So if you're dealing with like American organizations and then Korean players and stuff like that, so that might be a lot more common in the coaching scene than
Yeah.
others. But I don't know. To me, the biggest, I think the biggest shock here is despite a rough kind of close to the season, the Gladiators getting rid of everybody. But I didn't think Funny Astro had a super strong season. Kevster is obviously phenomenal. I just found it interesting that Funny Astro, of all the players, was the one retained.
Problem I've got with Funny Astro, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a talented player and the rest of it, but
Mhm.
it's a case of what else can he play aside from Lucio?
Right.
It's a case of can he play like the Mercy, the Brig, the BAP to a
Right.
very high level?
Right.
It's a case of he's always been pigeonholed as the Lucio one trick. Kind of like FD God was when he was on Paris Eternal.
Well, are they
gonna-
pigeonholed or are they limited?
Yeah, so we don't know that. I mean, he did play some Brig and Mercy for Fusion at one point, but
Yeah.
I don't know. if they stick with Funny Astro plus one other support, Astro's going to have to really flex big time. So it's a bit of a gamble, that one, in my opinion. But the fact they've kept Kevster, I'm a happy bunny.
Yeah.
Because Kevster is a literal flex god. There's nothing that guy can't play.
Unreal. I mean, the way they were able to, like, wasn't always a good choice, but the way, like, he was able to, sometimes he was the Sojourn, sometimes Happy was the Sojourn. He could jump onto the Tracer. He can play the Genji. He is one of the most flexible DPS in the entire league. That is for damn sure.
I remember at the end of season 1, they were talking about Tavik on Florida Mayhem. I mean, Richard, you might remember Tavik.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case of, at one point, they were saying how he was a jack of all trades, master of none, and that he may have to start specializing a bit more. So the question is, could Kevster do that as well? It's like, could he become a hit scan specialist? Can he become a projectile specialist? Things like that. It's like, narrow your pool down a little bit and get good at those heroes.
The audience at home is getting a ASMR of Richard's novel that he's typing over there.
Yeah, sorry, I just got this random note. So fun fact, I have to actually install a brand new HVAC system here, and the guy who just said he's gonna like respond with my what's it called? He's got to do an oil tank removal. I'm like, oh my god, and I got to like set this up at the same time the days that people are coming in. So I really apologize, guys.
No.
Oh my god, because you get this though, you're gonna love this because I think only Matt can appreciate this. Sorry, Plex. It takes a week to install like heating systems.
Sure, it's complicated.
A week. Yeah, so it starts November like 28th. So that's
god,
you gotta get it booked. Yeah,
in December. Oh my god.
Sorry, that's why I'm like, sorry guys. I'm like, I gotta do this. But like, do I say that I have to type this or not? Anyway, so like, okay.
Is there anything interesting here or whatever that sticks out to you?
So all this said, honestly, this is me talking, guys. I have no clue.
I know.
Because I hate saying that, and I know everyone's like, they want to play the role of like, oh, I'm gonna make this big, assessment on the strats. I actually don't know. The game's changing, like meaning heroes are coming in, and we already know the drastic effects. There's level balancing. We know Zarya's already getting the pants nerfed off of her. I think that's what I saw. Like a big lot of changes tomorrow, right? Boger, and that guy has gotten every meta right. So fun fact, I always
shout
use
out Boger.
I always look at him to see like what's the meta. He was okay. So I think I told you this. The reason why when we did the meta predictions for the new 5v5, the reason I was so confident about what I had chosen was I had a feeling it was going to go there, and then Boger was like, "This is going to be the meta," and it was the same thing.
Are you saying you don't believe in me, Richard?
I like
well,
you.
yeah,
no. I'm kidding. No.
You're right. Cause at the beginning, we were like, oh, like the Winston change was like, man, he's gonna be terrible, and you're like, I don't know, Winston's gonna be viable.
I actually, I not to just sit here to plug someone's stream, but definitely check out the style of like what Boger's been talking about, because again, he's like in Bulgaria. I don't know if he's going on Euro servers, going to NA or going to Asia. Like he's like all over the place, but being the tank that he is, he was always like a Winston, and he suffered through playing Orisa all like in those dark days, right, of contenders. So what I'm saying is, he's already saying Hog's going to be meta for comp, which is awful.
I've heard that. I know.
But
Hog Winston.
I trust him. So what I think is going to be interesting though is what the heck Ramatra's kit, like how that kit actually works, because one of the things that you've noticed, right? I'm sure you've noticed this, right? Like, think about it. Like, Kiriko flashes in, AoE save of everybody. You've got Orisa AoE pulls people in, right? Junker Queen, you got to get tight bundles. So I'm really curious how much of these new heroes will create contraction within the play space, right? Versus be things that create more like sort of broader based lateral styles of movements, because it's a huge thing right now. Is the game going to be played tight or is it going to be played wide? And that's why I'm really curious about how this can all line up, because everybody that's set the one thing, like again, and I'm so bad with the players' names now because there were so many changes in the last season and a half, like a lot.
Don't blame you.
Right, so many. But the ones that are there, they're flexible. We've seen them all go through various situations, both with the heroes, but also with sort of the reality of their team style in the context of the meta, good times and bad times. We're seeing folks that have seen things, like I've seen some shit. We're actually seeing no, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's like the view of the journeyman. Like the view of the journeyman. in wrestling or in
Yeah.
sport. Like it actually, and you need those. So I don't know, like maybe I'm overly optimistic or just like kind of romanticizing a bit, but there's a part of me that thinks it's not about like just putting in the work and the hours. There's a lot of folks that are coming in and sort of this retention for perspective. And that's why I'm super curious about the Kazoris thing, like, because Shock has been awesome with that. I know we kind of poke at them for choking here and there, but they are consistent, which requires you to have to base not just plan about how you're going to win, but how you're going to adapt when your system doesn't work. And that's the greatest foundation for team sports. Like you can't just love winning. You got to hate losing, and then you have to figure out why, and then try to mitigate risk. And I think it's actually really cool, but I just wish I knew. I'm convinced we're going to see some like contenders monster show up. We're going to get like another kind of Jonak appear. And then my only concern, I guess, through all this is I'm just curious how this all nets out in the APAC region. I know there's been some their contender scene seems awesome. I see a lot of people tuning in to watch these games right now. I'm curious where the next round's coming from because there are people playing the game. What we aren't getting, though, is really sort of solid players kind of transitioning into Overwatch. We're still getting people going out, right?
Yes.
So that's going to be the trade-off, which means, and this is just me trying to wave the flag of development and the pyramid.
Here it comes.
I really hope what it means is that we'll find actually some great stars or even team roster pickups from really, really solid contenders programs, like those divisions, like three folks go one spot, two folks go another. We might see some support pairs go together. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen so many drops, because I don't think you can just pick up one or two or three players like randomly. I think we're going to see sets. I think the DPS, the deeps will be solos, but I'm convinced we're going to see support pairs.
Okay, I could see that.
How many times in your comp games have you been like, just you need a pair of support, because it is an underutilized role right now in game, like for the average player. But when you get that support pair, you are on, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's just it's theoretical.
Chemistry.
It's theoretical, it's a lot of
That's
emotion
interesting.
coming into the play into the space. But that's kind of what, again, maybe it's just me holding out hope for Toronto. I can see that, because if you have two great supports and a Hotba, oh my God.
That's a good start.
Gosh, that's a great start, right?
That's a great start.
Because actually, I think the position that's going to be swapped out the most is going to be deeps, 100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, but like I said, we got a long ways to go. And that's why I think watching things like, I'm really curious. Like, I think Calling All Heroes is going on at a wonderful time. We've got all sorts of tier 2 and tier 3 stuff, independent tournaments. I think we're going to have to really watch those to see how the game evolves, because the one thing about Overwatch 2 is that those consistency cycles are much shorter. Like these metas, it's kind of great that the meta doesn't hold for so long now. I'm not saying that it changes every time. It's not. I don't mean it's changing all the time. That's not good either, right? But what we do get is it's like, this was like the Junker Queen meta it was a stage, but that was it. Right, its actual long-term impact wasn't huge. It just means you need a solution for when things don't go your way.
Yeah,
and that's actually kind of cool, right? Like that's actually the fun part of strategizing in these sports versus honing the meta till it's like reductio ad absurdum, where it becoms goats, and it's just optimizing. It's what it is. Then it becomes min-maxing in an MMO. So I know Plex, you know all about that kind of stuff, right? The min-maxers, like that's not actually that fun. Now you're doing like spreadsheet the game. And yes, your skills are
trying to get that 0.01%.
Yeah, right. It's fractional stuff, and like, So anyway,
just play what you want and hope for the best. That's what I like.
But that's what I like about the way the game's going right now. Like, short of unless you're like grotesquely out of position, you can almost always make something work.
Sure.
If I joke, it's like if you can actually hold up to the promise, like you're still getting a lot of brigs, even though she might not be the best. But like if you're really good, you're okay, And I think that's where it gets really interesting. I just really do hope that we don't. My biggest fear is that some of the folks who don't get re-signed, they might actually find great opportunities in other games, and that would just be the bummer. right? But again, maybe we'll get something new in. I'm pretty sure we will. We saw a lot of that this year, a lot of new names coming to the forefront. And, you know, I've been out of that tier 2 scene for a while, but everybody who's in there knows who these folks are. So, you know, like just trust the system, I think, in that case, and we'll see something awesome.
Yeah, no,
speaking
I
of moving
agree
further
with that.
games, I see Matt's got something propped up, ready to go.
I mean, no, we'll leave that. We've said that piece. What I want to end on though is we talked about the new stuff in the scene, some of the stuff we're really excited about. Calling All Heroes. We talked about it a couple episodes back. Their second round of the Challengers Cup qualifiers starts this week. If you're listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday, it will start on Friday. So check it out. Some incredible casters will be there. This is just the talent announcement, but I'll use this as a segue, is that we are in the talks to hopefully have some of the founders and like the people behind this entire program with Blizzard, with the Overwatch League, with Overwatch, who put this program together. Hopefully have them on the show here talking about this, because as we mentioned in the last episode we talked about it, this is the kind of stuff that I think is going to really help the scene moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
create more avenues.
Yes.
To get top.
Yes, absolutely. Between this and hopefully more improvements to things like Open Division and Contenders, I think we're if we can even do a fraction of some of the stuff that like Valorant is doing with Game Changers, which is going on right now as well, that would be really, really cool to see.
Huge.
On a selfish note, I want to see another Geggery of some kind, like another female player.
Sure.
Hit the top. Like at the minute, I'm secretly pulling for Aspen to be signed to a team.
Yeah. No, I
Like,
mean,
now she's
was on
doing content
Revival.
creation with the Guard right now, right? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken,
Yes.
right? She's doing that. So, I mean, hey, you never know. Although, I mean, I know I think it's probably still in her plan. I swear I saw some post about that. But yeah, I think we'll see it, right? I mean, like I said, if you watch the last Calling All Heroes tournament, like H-Key, holy cow. Like H-Key, that name came up like a billion times, and I'm like, this is gross. Now, I don't have the ability to actually tell you that their level of play is where it needs to be. Who knows, right? But there's a lot of talent out there, and I love that you mentioned like the Game Changers thing, because I saw that kind of hit the feeds today, and I was like, oh yeah,
this is going on right now.
Yeah. So you know what? Like I said, the thing is, the world's a big place. It's a big place, and talent comes from everywhere. I'm just really I just like think it'll be what I think is going to be interesting is we already know that there's shortcomings in scouting. You only have so much time, right? So many resources. Sometimes it helps to have just a great tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's out there, and then again, well featured on things like the Overwatch League channel, and get more of a platform. We'll see what the viewership is like and everything on this. It's going to be really, really cool. But we'll talk about that next week for sure, because it's going down this weekend. Again, encourage everybody to watch it if you can. But for us here at OverBOTCH, that'll be it for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening, for watching. Like, subscribe, hit all that stuff down below. We appreciate you very, very, very much. And until next time, for the great Root Bear, up and finally losing his heat for a week and having concussions and going through all kinds of good stuff, and Plexomatic across the pond, I am the Drama King. Thank you very much, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye.